So financial aid night and FAFSA are two words that go synonymously together. So FAFSA stands for free application of federal student aid, and the first word is free. So do not go to FAFSA.com, they'll charge you $75, and you'll be like, I don't understand, she said it was free. Right, because that's like an organization that does it for you. So I do have my sheet that I've created here. Michael works with VIA, which is state grant. So I've learned enough about financial aid in the last 5 years that I have done financial aid with your child in front of me in 5 seconds. So I'll like get your child's, how many people in your family, I ask for the income, you know, blah, 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 and I literally will say, I think you're going to get the maximum from the government, the maximum from the state, a loan for $5,500, work study for $2,000, you know. So I can actually predict about 2/3 of your child's financial aid packet. First of all, I have 16 instant decision day schools, so I recognize a lot of faces in here, so I'm glad. I am marketing my 16 schools that I've partnered with. We are on school number 5 tomorrow, I think, so basically I've already sat through at least 20 to 30 interviews a day where the student has applied ahead of time. I have screened the application. I approve of them sitting in front of the rep. They sit in front of the rep. They talk about themselves and their major. They get accepted on the spot. They get a takeaway present, and they get a letter that says, congratulations, you are going to Alvernia. You got $16,000 in merit scholarship. So that's part 1 of the pot. And then part 2 is FAFSA, which I can help your child predict. So that's 2/3 of the pot. The only thing that I can't predict is what's called back-end money. So back-end money is where you fill out FAFSA, you put your child's top 10 schools. Now you're basically giving permission for FAFSA to send your child's information to Alvernia, Albright, Kutztown, Millersville, and now the financial aid person is working up back-end money. So they're going to relook at your child, relook at the grades, relook at the GPA, relook at the major, and say, we really want Ava. She is bright and smart, and we think that we really want her to be part of Arcadia. So therefore, we're going to throw in an extra $6,000 on the back end, and hopefully, she'll like us enough that she'll want to commit to us for the next 4 years. So basically, that's how financial aid works. So step 1 is merit money, step 2 is financial aid, and then step 3 is a part of step 2, because you're telling the schools what your 10 top schools are. So the schools that I bring to the table, and it's been a very successful instant decision day. I even need a cheat sheet because there's so many. So Cabrini came, and Kutztown came, Widener came, Chestnut Hill came yesterday, Arcadia is coming tomorrow, Wendy Mercy is coming Monday, Millersville is coming Wednesday, Temple is coming Thursday, Lebanon Valley somewhere in there, Bluesburg somewhere in there, Shippensburg somewhere in there. So these kids are coming to accept your child on the spot and give you scholarship money. So as I look around the room, I already see a lot of familiar kids who have gone through the interview process, and it is easy as heck. So please do not miss out. Why would you sit at home and wait months for an answer when you get an answer in 5 seconds? So that's called Instant Decision Day, and it pairs nicely because there's no one way to pay for college. There's at least, 3 main ways, and then loans and scholarships and working and grandma money and all that good stuff. So this is Michael Burke. He's probably one of the best speakers that I have met in terms of financial aid. He works for the state side. He works for VIA. So financial aid is government money and state money. So he is one of our 2 region speakers, and he's very busy, but I waited for him to be free so that he can come and speak to all of you. So hopefully our technical issues are good.
Yep,
okay, thank you.
So earlier today I spent the entire day with a bunch of middle school students, working through career options and things like that, and trying to get them to think about this so when they get into high school, they start picking their courses and things like based on maybe what they want to do in life, what kind of career they want to have, and what kind of skills and expertise that they're going to need to be successful in those careers. So for your children, you're already in that process. So they're here, so they're now moving into that next stage of now trying to find those schools or institutions that are going to provide them with the skills and expertise to be successful in the careers that they're looking for in their life. And certainly hopefully helping them also meet the type of quality of life that they want to have as well. So in terms of financial aid, I gave you a lot of information. I mean, that's it. That's the whole picture. So we got it there. But I'm going to go through a few details
More importantly, though, your questions and concerns are most interest to me. I know this stuff. I'm here to help you. So if you have questions or concerns or anything that we talked about, if you need more clarification, if there's something that you don't understand, please let me know, and I'll try to do my best to address that. We have a lot of different materials here that we provided to you this evening. All of this is available on the FIA website as well, so it's all online. Probably the piece that I'm going to talk about the most, that I think will be the best resource for the students and for the families, is the Pennsylvania Student Aid Guide. So we update this each year. We provide you with the rules, policies, procedures that we're aware of at the time that we publish this. So as you may know, the financial aid application is good for 1 year. We reapply each year. Part of that has to do with formulas can change, programs can change, funding can change. But more importantly, what I see most is your circumstances can change. Okay? And based on that, that can certainly impact your child being able to go to college, or go to the college that they want to go to, or keeping them in school. So that can be an issue as well. So this will give you an overview of the whole financial aid process, all the aid available from the state, the federal government, what forms the student needs to complete, the deadline dates, and there's some good links in here and phone numbers in here as well. So if you go out to our FIA website, you can actually see all those links live. You can go in and out of them if you want. There's a lot of other publications that we didn't provide here that were put together for you. They're all free. So if you go out there and you see anything that you think would be of interest to you, you can call us and we'll be happy to send it out to you, or you can actually order it online. The other thing I want to do is I want to give you my contact information. So as I said, I do a lot of traveling for the agency. I am on the road. It's a very busy time for me. The best way to reach me is via email. So just send me an email. Let me know what your question or concern is. I'll certainly try to help you with that. If we need to have a conversation because it may be in depth, then we can set up a time that we can be available and talk about whatever your concern or issue is. Please use me as a resource at any time. When you're filing these forms, after you file the forms, if you're getting information from the state requesting additional information, the schools, the federal government, whoever it may be, even on the back end, when you get those award notices from the schools, if you're not sure about what they're providing you or what they're saying, I'll be more than happy to help you in any way that I possibly can. So I touched on a couple of things here, and I want to talk very quickly about some basics. Since we may have some lower-level students in here as well, who might be hearing this for the first time. But you may know that you really are the first source of financial aid. So the federal government, the state, and all the schools that your children are interested in, so they're the really three sources where aid comes from. There is a fourth one. But all of those entities look to you, the family, first. It is your responsibility to help that child meet their educational expenses. So you're applying for financial aid, we're collecting information from you, and that's where all those three entities come in afterwards. They then look to see, where there may be some gaps. Where can they fill in that child's need with other need-based grants and scholarships and things like that. Okay. The fourth resource that's available to students is private outside scholarship. Because of technology, it does make it a little bit easier because you can go out on the internet. I would encourage you only use the free sites. You shouldn't have to pay for free money. So if you are out there and they're asking you to pay money and they're going to guarantee you X amount of dollars in scholarships, forget it. It's not true, it's a scam. If you are solicited by an agency that says, hey, your name was picked out of whatever, and you're eligible for the scholarship and you didn't apply to that scholarship or reach out to that agency, forget it. Don't even bother going because they're all seniors, okay? Outside private scholarships come from individuals, foundations, organizations, community. The school will be aware of some that are here that are available, and I'm sure they communicate that information to your children somehow. I really encourage students to apply to those, look at that. With the internet, it's a little bit easier, but it is a job. I mean, you do have to research that, and hopefully that'll pay off for you. I also encourage students when they're in college to continue to do that each year because there are other private outside scholarships that might come up based on maybe different experiences that they have, so they can change the profile, or there may be scholarships that weren't there before, so that your child may be eligible for. And that's all free money. Grant and scholarship is free money, you know, to help that student meet their educational expenses. So that's the other thing I think that's important too, that I want students to be aware of, is when you get those award notices from the different colleges that you're applying to, make sure you're reading them, looking at them, and understanding them. I still have students who call me up after they graduate and said, there's something wrong. You know, all the money that I got from college was free. It was grants and scholarship money, and now they're telling me that I borrowed and I have to pay this money back. Okay? And no, they borrowed money. They had a loan in there. I don't know why they thought it was a grant or a scholarship, but it's loan money and you have to pay it back with interest. So again, when you get those award notices, please make sure you understand what merit-based aid is. Okay? Most of you should know, merit-based aid has nothing to do with your family's financial circumstances. Okay? It's usually a student bringing something special to that school where they're willing to give you a scholarship. And each year, as long as you meet that criteria, you'll continue to get that scholarship. So it has nothing to do with your financial situation, your household size, number, and column. Now, need-based aid does. So that's why we're collecting that information, because we're trying to establish or determine what that student's need is at the various schools that they're looking for. And your need will change based on the cost of attendance at those schools. So it may go up or down. Okay? The information that we collect from the FAFSA, as Clyde talked about, once you provide that information, that goes through various formulas that are approved by Congress each year, and they then determine what do they think this family can contribute towards that child's education. That's called the estimated family contribution, or EFC. And that's a very important number for all of you, because that number never changes, regardless of the type of school you go to. And that is the formula that schools use, and that EFC is all the same. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through that. But again, merit-based scholarship, money, free money, but it's based on student bringing something special. You know, need-based grants and scholarships, again, free money, grant and scholarship, it's based on the student demonstrating need, aid that's available from the schools that they participate in, and what their funding levels are. And then the very last source is all of the loan programs, or self-help programs. And that would include your loan programs, your federal work study, your state work study, and any contribution that you're bringing or making to help that student meet their educational expenses. So you may know that all of your children are eligible for the Federal Direct Student Loan Program. No collateral, no credit check. They can borrow that money if they want. It's a resource available to them. However, they are limited to the amount that they can borrow each year. It's based on their grade level. Doesn't matter what the cost of the school is. So it could be $10,000 or $60,000. There's a limited amount that they can borrow each year based on their grade level. Okay? And there's an aggregate amount that they can borrow for the life of that program. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Now, schools you'll find will tell a student what their maximum eligibility is for that federal direct student loan. They have to, by law. Doesn't mean the student has to borrow one penny from them. If they have enough aid coming from other resources, where there are other options that are available to you, you don't want to take out that loan, you don't need to do that. If you want to borrow less than what the maximum is, you certainly can do that as well. There's a loan out there for parents. So if your child, after we deduct all the aid they're awarded, you still have a balance owed to that school, you actually can borrow that whole amount through the Federal Plus Loan Program. That's a loan that's available to parents of dependent children. Okay? And you can borrow up to the cost of attendance minus any other aid that students get. Unfortunately, that's not automatic. So you go through a slight credit check. It's determined by Congress. It's not like if you were applying for a mortgage or a loan, it's not that in-depth. But if for some reason you, the parent, are denied, you have three options. You can appeal it, you can apply with an eligible cosigner, or you can do nothing at all. If you do nothing at all, it does allow that dependent child to borrow in their first year an additional $4,000 in unsubsidized money. Unsubsidized money means that the amount that the student is borrowing, all the interest that is accruing on that, is the responsibility of that student to pay that back. Now, in that situation, there's nothing the student needs to do other than to say to school, I want to tap into some of that money. But you are limited. It's only an additional $4,000. So in that scenario, a dependent first-year student, instead of being maxed out at $5,500, because that's the max for them. In that scenario, they could borrow $9,500 in that case. Okay? Again, they can borrow as much for a little bit of that as they want. So I wanted to make mention of, just some of the basics so that you keep that in mind as you're going through this process. The other thing is that in order to be considered for financial aid, you certainly have to apply. I encourage every family to apply. Reason being is, yes, rules and regulations get tweaked each year. I can tell you this year, most of the changes that have taken place in the application process really center around security. So the process itself has not changed that much. The Department of Education cleaned up a lot of the language within the application to make it easier for people to understand based on your feedback. They've also provided a little bit more information on helps and hints, to tell you and help you understand what information is required on the FAFSA. You're going to find the majority of it is coming from your tax return for 18-19. It's going to be 2 years ago, 2016. We're going to talk about that as well. Okay. So that's where a lot of the stuff really was updated. And the other thing, as I said, is security things. So the Department of Education and all their partners, state agencies, as well as the IRS, will also tie into this as well to make this process easier for you. Have tightened up on their security and to really protecting the information that the student and parents are providing to us. Now, as a result of some of those changes, you have options. You might not like some of the changes, and I'm going to review that with you and tell you what your options are, and then you can elect whichever way is best for your family. So the first thing you need to do, I mentioned the free application for federal student aid. It is a free form. Don't pay anyone to complete that form. There's a lot of free help out there. When you get into the application, there's a little question mark. You can contact the Department of Education directly by phone, by email, or you can by check any questions that you may have. Okay? Or you can reach out to me. You can reach out to any of the schools, okay, as well as the state. We'll assist you and help you with that as well. The FAFSA, if you do the online version, it should take you no more than 30 minutes, okay, maybe even less. And for students who are returning back to school, it's even less because they have less questions that they have to answer. So this is the one form that all students need to complete. You do not have to be accepted to the school, or you can apply to a school to start the financial aid process. That's important because everybody has deadlines, okay? So if your child has not filed a FAFSA yet, they're looking at a number of different schools, okay? They either want to go out to the school's website and make sure that they see what their deadline date when they want that information in and what forms they require to make sure you get that done by the earliest of deadline dates, okay? But like I said, you don't have to apply or be accepted. You can list any school down there that you think you might be interested in attending or want to go to. Yes?
Does it matter how early you apply? Because I've heard that if you apply for FAFSA sooner, you get more money.
Well, it really depends, and it's a really hard question for me to answer, okay? Because as far as the state and the federal government is concerned, as long as you apply by our deadline date, you are automatically going to be considered, for that aid as long as you meet the criteria. Now, for some of the schools that you may be applying to, depending on how they do their awarding, most schools, they wait until the priority date, and they look at all the students who have applied by their priority date, okay? And they consider all those students first. Okay, so as a result of that, anybody after that, yes, there may be aid that you will not be considered for because they've exhausted all their sponsorship. So most schools that have priority dates do that. So in most instances, they have enough funds that they know that they can meet, that student's need or determine their eligibility as long as they meet the criteria for those different programs that they participate in. But there may be some programs out there where, yes, the earlier you apply, because the pot is limited, the better off you may be. It's all going to depend on who that is. I know for the state, we have a program, unfortunately, my first-year students are not eligible for. And that is really not a need-based program, but it follows all the same rules as the state grant program. Other than state grant, you have to demonstrate need. For this program, it's called the Ready to Succeed Scholarship Program. It is mentioned in your book, okay? But you have to have a certain college GPA. You have to complete at least 24 college credits, okay? There is an income cap that where you'll be considered, and it's really more of a merit-based, and that's a first-come, first-served basis. And actually, your application for that is your FAFSA, okay? So, but, it's the earlier you file that and get it in, the earlier you're going to be considered consider for that. Once those funds are exhausted, because it is limited, then they're gone. Okay, so that's a scenario where yes, the earlier you apply would impact that. So it's really hard for me to answer that only because it all depends on the schools and what type of aid they have, how their process works. Okay, but the nice thing about FAFSA is the majority of information I said is coming from income tax returns that you should already have completed. And because the FAFSA is out earlier now, 3 months earlier, so it comes out October 1st each year, you should be able to file that pretty quickly because you should have all the information that you need in order to complete that. The other thing about the FAFSA is that once you complete that and submit it and it's processed, you can go in and make updates and changes after that. So again, students, look at your priority deadline date. Okay? Make sure you're filing that FAFSA on time. If you need to go back and make updates or changes, that's okay. We're always going to look at the original date when that student filed it. As long as that's met the schools, the feds, the state's deadline, you're going to be okay. Okay. Now, for state grant, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Does it matter what order you put those colleges on?
Good question. You guys are answering all my stuff. No, that's fine. So, as Ty did mention, with the FAFSA, the online application, because there is a paper or PDF version of the FAFSA, you don't want to do that. Okay. You can download that into your computer, but you have to answer every single question. You only can list up to 4 schools on that. It takes the federal government 8 to 11 weeks to process it. So while they're processing it, none of the schools or the state has the information, because it goes to them first. They have to process it, and then they send it out to all of those entities that are listed on the form. So the online application is much easier. It only takes 72 hours or shorter, so that you can do that and send that out. And there's a lot of all the links and options that I'm going to be reviewing with you are all available on the online application. You can list up to 10 schools on that. Okay? And it does not matter as far as the federal government is concerned how you list those schools. So they made a change to that a long time ago. So each school only sees themselves. Before, in the past, when the student listed all their schools on the FAFSA, all those other schools could see all the schools that you were interested in looking at. They can't do that. They only see themselves and they're all listed as number 1. So in terms of the federal government, it does not matter how you list those schools on the FAFSA.
Mr. Burt, tell them why they did that.
Well, the reason they did that is that there were some schools, unfortunately, that were using that information in a way that they shouldn't be. So for some schools, if you listed them as the first choice, a lot of them may say, well, this student really wants to go here, so we don't have to offer them as much aid. That's not the way it should work, and that's not the way they should be using that information. Some other schools may look at that in a different way. Oh, we're number 6. So that student may not be that interested in attending my school. So again, they may have offered you less aid. It really is hard to, they were using it in so many different ways. And when the Department of Education determined that, they said, okay, we're going to put a stop to this. So that's why they did that. And that was a good move on their part. Because schools should not be using that information in that way. Okay. So as far as the state is concerned, since we use mostly the same information, require the same information that the federal government is collecting from your FAFSA, we get a copy of every Pennsylvania resident's FAFSA. We automatically build the student state grant record. Now, because of the way our program is legislated, there is some information that we need to determine the student's eligibility for state grant that we can't get from the FAFSA. So for first-time applicants, you do have to complete what is called the state grant form. And if you're doing the online FAFSA, there's a link that will be presented to you that you can click right into our online form, complete those additional questions, okay, like 6, 7, it's not that many. Actually, if it takes you more than 10 minutes to complete that form, you'll be really surprised, and then it's done, okay? So after that, each year after that, you don't have to complete that state grant form. You just complete the FAFSA because it's free. We roll over the information each year, okay? Now, some of the schools that your children may be looking for, in addition to FAFSA, so remember, everyone has to file the FAFSA. It's called the student's application. So please keep that in mind as well, parents, because FAFSA is one form. There's 2 sections, student and parent, okay? Okay, but all the information from the schools, from the federal government, from the state, the results of the FAFSA all get sent to the student. Okay, so you guys pretty much are fired. You know, so unless the students are telling you or opening those emails or sharing those with you, you're not going to get any of this information or very little bit of information from any of those entities. So you want to make sure that those students are talking to students. You got to open your emails. If you get an email from the U.S. Department of Education, from Federal Student Aid Services, from FIA, PHEAA, that's the state process, open those, look at them. If you don't understand it, call them. Share the information with your parents so they can help you. Because I've seen so many kids miss out on aid because they didn't respond to an email. You know, their applications weren't complete. We needed additional information. It's the only reason why they were not considered for that.
So here is what happens. I told the seniors, check your email, because I email you scholarship information. Come January, I get a lot of local scholarships. And the best way for me to promote it is to send it via email. Right now, I'm being obnoxious and I'm sending you 3 schools information at a time. The people who read the email are the ones that are coming down for the interview. So same thing with financial aid. Mr. Burke is fantastic, but I've definitely learned a lot. Come and show me the email. But first you have to open the email. I'm actually quite used to what now is, usually it's a documentation that you need to verify, dependent, you know, just a bunch of stuff. I'm used to it, but if you don't open those emails in a timely manner, you're right. You know, it's not a good thing. So I welcome any senior to come down during the study hall, and I'll start the FAFSA ID with you to show you how to begin, and then I'll tell you the next steps. And then a lot of times people will be like, oh yeah, I did the FAFSA on October 1st. I go, okay, what are your results? They're like, I don't know. I said, open up your phone, Google the word FAFSA confirmation, I read their email, and I tell them their results right there and then. You get an automatic email, microseconds, the minute you hit enter for FAFSA. I think that Mr. Burke glossed over one little thing that I have to say. You're right, the FIA part takes 5 minutes. It is, do you live in PA? Yes, I do. How long? 17 years. Do you have a 529? No, I don't. The problem is, when you are done the FAFSA, the little link is literally microscopic. It's that small. It says, are you ready to begin the state grant? And everybody misses it. If you miss it, your information's in the air for like 72 hours. So you will be locked out of the system. So if you take nothing away from what I say tonight, is when you do FAFSA.org and you create a FAFSA ID, and I did, that green sheet is my step-by-step sheet. You create a FAFSA ID, son or daughter creates a FAFSA ID, you do your questions, you pull your W-2 down from the cloud, you do all your little things, you sign with your electronic signature, and then you hit enter, you're not done. Look for the tiny blue link that says, are you ready to start the PA state grant? Once you click on that, your information transfers over to aessuccess.org, and now you can finish those 5 little sentences, put your #1 PA school, mail it in, fax it in, whatever, now you're done. That's the part that a lot of times kids are like, what do you mean? What PA part? I didn't see any PA part, because they think FAFSA is one part. It's the government part, and it's the state part. I mean, unless you don't want the state money.
And we've done that. We used to have a separate application, but we did away with it because the majority of the information we need is the same information FAFSA is asking. So we did partner with the Department of Education years ago where we get that information. Unfortunately, the link comes on the confirmation page, and I'll show you that. The department only allows us to show it once, so if the student missed it, and they try to go back into the application, they'll never see that again. It is easy to miss because on that confirmation page is a lot of information, and depending on what information you previously provided, you may have other options that are presented to you. For example, if you have more than 1 child in school at the same time, each child has to apply for financial aid on their own. You, the parent, information is exactly the same. So when you say there are 2 in college in the household, on that confirmation page, you're going to get an option that says, oh, would you like to start an application for a sibling? Okay? And it allows that parent to transfer their information into that other child's application, and all they need to do is complete the student section. So you're going to see those types of things, and it all depends on, what information you provided on that FAFSA. Yes, ma'am.
What if, you said 2016 tax return?
Yes.
What if the financial information is substantially different?
So we're going to talk about that. Okay, because
First
FAFSA,
2017.
Yeah, FAFSA is very black and white. You have to use the information that's required. You have to answer every question that is presented. Okay? If the answer is 0, you want to put in 0. Everything is whole dollars. Okay? No negative numbers. If something comes up as a negative number, you enter it into 0. Okay? The application, the online application is very smart. It has edits built into it, so you can't make a mistake. If you missed a question you had to answer, it will stop you, and you'll be prompted to either clarify your answer or to present or answer that question. And then, as you answer those questions, if there's questions that don't apply to you, you're not even going to see them. They won't even show up. That's the skip logic here. You'll skip questions that don't apply to you. So in any event, just getting back to the form. If you're looking at a private institution, okay, it's important that you make sure that you're looking at our website to see what financial aid forms you require to complete to be considered for all aid offered by that school. So as I said earlier, everybody has to fill out the FAFSA. You put all your schools on. Some schools, and it's only private schools, and it's not all private schools, require the CSS profile. It's not a free form, $25 application fee, and includes the first choice school. Each additional school that requires that form or that you put on there, you're going to be charged an additional $16. You only want to complete the profile if the school requires it. And you only want to put those schools on that are asking for that information. The profile is very invasive, very detailed. It wants a lot more information than FAFSA. There's things that you will need to include on the profile that should never be included on the FAFSA, especially when it comes to asset information, some untaxed information, okay? Those things, profile's going to want all of that. Retirement funds, they're going to know all of it. FAFSA does not. So when you're filling out those forms, make sure you're reading those questions to see what information they're asking for, because there are differences. You can go out and Google CSS profile or go to College Board, that's a management that. You can see every school that requires a profile. So you can see if any of your schools that's it, or you can go out to the website. But it is only private institutions, so it's not all private institutions. Okay. So this is FAFSA. Kind of talked about. This is FAFSA.gov, the official website. I talked about that. This is exactly what you should see. You go out there. If you're not seeing this, you're on the wrong website. Okay? Students would just go in, start a new FAFSA, and you want to make sure you're filling out 1819. So many people, seniors this year, who told me they filed the FAFSA and they filed the 1718. That's for the current year. You will not be considered for aid when you go to college. You have to fill out the 1819, so make sure that's the one that you completed. If you did not, you need to go back in and complete the 1819 FAFSA. We talked about all the edits and the build-ins. I just want to show you a couple. So on this here, there's that little question mark. That'll give you information and contacting the department, however you want. And the other thing that's up there I want to point out, I mentioned this, is the FSA ID. Okay, that little link, and that'll take you right in there. And that is something that each student and at least one parent needs to create. It acts as your electronic signature, but it also allows you to access a lot of other information on other federal databases that house student information. Okay, so we can talk about that as well. Okay. So for 1819, getting to your question, you must use your 2016 tax return, regardless. FAFSA is very black and white. So that is the income year that we're looking at. Okay. So it's 2 years old. Okay. So if you retired after 2016, you lost your job, you maybe got a new job, and maybe your income is different or changed, unfortunately, you still have to use 2016 income information. I'm going to tell you how to deal with those changes on the back end, but you cannot do it on the actual application. The other thing you want to be aware of as well is if you are required to provide asset information. Now, all students are required to provide asset information if they are the owner of that asset. Okay. Parents have income and asset protection allowance. So in some instances, parents, you may not need to provide any additional asset information. But if you do, and the form will tell you, you need to provide the net value of that asset as of the day you are completing the FAFSA. So what do I mean by that? So net value would be is, let's say you have a vacation home you would need to determine what the value of that vacation home is today. If there's any debt owed on that, you would subtract that. And what is left is the net value. And that's what you would have to include in your report on FAFSA under the asset section. Okay. So just keep that in mind. So income is 2 years old, asset is the date of your file. I did talk about a lot of security built around it. So one of the things the department put out there that's new this year is you'll see this disclaimer that you have to accept. And basically it just says for your protection, we're monitoring this. We find that if anyone is using this, it doesn't matter if it's a state agency, an individual, or somebody who should not be using this in the way it was intended, the federal government is monitoring that and they will prosecute. And it makes it a lot easier for them to be able to start that process as a result of this disclaimer that they put in. We talked about deadline dates, okay? You know, I'm not going to harp on this too much, but you're going to find everybody has their own deadline. The schools usually are the earliest. Schools have deadline dates this month. Okay, a lot of them move their deadline dates up. Okay, because again, they want to reach out to you and tell you, if you come to my school, here's all the aid you may be eligible for. You know, and hopefully get you to commit, you know, to that school early on. So FAFSA became available 3 months earlier, October 1st, and you're using prior year income information. So FAFSA, the majority of the information is coming from the income tax return. You should be able to file that right away. And the schools know that they can get that information earlier, so now they're trying to turn that around and get the results of that to you. For the state, you're going to see our deadline date is a little bit earlier than the feds. The feds have the latest of deadline dates. So if you're going into a degree-granting institution, a 4-year school, your deadline to file the FAFSA is May 1st. And that's the same thing for any returning students. If you are a first-time applicant, though, you're looking at a community college only, or a business, trade, or technical, or hospital school of nursing, you know, or a junior college, or there's a couple open admissions institutions, we give that student till August 1st to file the FAFSA the first year only, still be on time. Okay, but you're going to find that all of your schools and the majority of your schools want this information more. So know what forms they want and know when they want them. Because if you miss the deadline date, I guarantee you not be considered for all aid offered by the school. As I said earlier, the FAFSA application is broken down into 2 sections. It's one application. It does require student and parent information if the student is dependent. Okay? And parents, you cannot make your students independent. Students, you cannot make yourselves independent. There are 14 questions that are presented to you on FAFSA. Depending on how you answer those questions will determine whether or not you are considered dependent or independent. If you are dependent, yes, you must provide parent information. So whose information goes on the FAFSA? So if you're a married couple, biological parents, mom, dad, kids, yes, all of your information needs to go on the FAFSA. If you are divorced or separated, okay, normally we want the information of the custodial parent, the parent which the student lives with. Okay. Now, if it's a situation where that student may be living with both parents equally throughout the year, you, the parents, will need to determine who provided the most financial support to that child in the last 12 months or the last time that they received support. And it's that student and that parent's information that should go on the FAFSA. If that parent remarried and there's a step-parent, regardless of whether they're contributing to that child's education or not, their information must be included on that FAFSA. If you are divorced or separated, but you still live in the same household together, both information needs to go on. If you are the biological parent and you never married and you live together, both parents' information needs to go on. If you adopted the child, yes. Anybody else, no. So if you're a legal guardianship, you're in you're a foster parent, student is living with someone else, grandparent, aunt, uncle, girlfriend, boyfriend, no, you're not the parent. Your information does not go on the form, even if they are providing support to that child. This is where I talked about independence. So again, this year there are 14 questions. These are just samples. Most of my seniors answered no to all of these questions. And yes, they do need to provide parent information. But your dependency status or the student status is going to be determined by the way they answer those questions. Okay. This is just a screenshot of the FAFSA. So you can see student is blue. It's marked student. That's information of the student. No parent information. That's student information. Okay. Many parents are doing this process and helping their kids, and they don't look to see where they are. And in most instances, we wind up getting FAFSA applications for the parent. So you become the student. And that's what we're processing them. Okay? So again, student information, student, parent information is marked parent, and it turns purple. And then there's that helps and hints throughout the whole application that for every question that is presented to you on the online application, that pops up. Please scroll down in there. There's a lot of information available to you. I get lots of questions. That the information is right here on the form. And I think parents, you don't go in and scroll down because there's a lot of stuff there, especially when it comes to asset and untaxed information, what should and should not be included. So please look at that. It will really help. Okay. So information that you need, yes, the 2016 tax return for 18-19, W-2s maybe, bank statements maybe, you know, other investment information you may need as well, depending on if you have to provide asset information. And then we're going to talk about that FSA ID and the importance of that. So, this has created a lot of problems for families this year. And I'm going to share some of that have been expressed to me and hope that you can avoid that. If you've already done it, okay, good. I hope it was easy for you. So each student, if they're interested in doing this whole process electronically, must create an FSA ID, okay, a username and a password. You're not going to get anything from the federal government. No magical number or anything comes to you. Your FSA ID is that username and password that you created. Okay. Now, I'm going to share some because I created my own, and it took me 6 times to do it. Only because all these other people out there were using my username. So every username I put in there, it said already taken, already taken, already. Finally, after the 6th time, I got one that somebody wasn't using. So here's what you need to do. Not to get frustrated with that, because it was very frustrating to me, and there was nothing in there that guided me to that. I would say add a number or a digit or a character or something to that, and you're probably going to be okay. But you need to create that username and password, and that is your FSA ID. That is your electronic signature. You will use that forever, okay, unless the department changes that process. Parents, at least one parent needs to get an FSA ID that you have to sign your child's application to. Okay? Both parents can get it if you like. There are some instances where that makes sense, especially in a divorce situation, but it's not required. Now, parents, you're going to create your username and password, unique to you. When you go out to FSA ID, that website, you're going to get 2 options. One that says manage my FSA ID, so that's if you already created and want to make a change. Or create one. There's nothing that says parent FSA ID, student FSA. It's the same. The questions are the same. But the information is unique to you. Okay? You can also add an email, and this year also a smartphone number or a mobile phone number. So if you forget your username or password and you attach that to your record, the Department of Education will give you a temporary. They'll either email it to you or text it to you, or both, depending on how you set that up. Yes, sir.
Are you saying that the student has a separate FSA ID separate from the parent?
Yes.
Did I
No, that's correct. Because it acts as your electronic signature, so that is yours, okay? So you create your own if you want to do this electronically. And the student has to create their own because it acts as their electronic signature because each of you need to sign the application.
Okay. So
Otherwise, you physically have to print out the signature page, sign it, and mail it into the department. The department will not process that application, even if they get it electronically, without the signature page. So we wait for it. Okay, so it'll delay the process. Okay. The other thing is, with the FSA ID for the student, it allows you to track your application, it allows you to go in and make changes, updates. It'll allow you to do the whole federal direct loan process electronically if you want. And it allows you into a lot of other federal databases where you're going to use that FSA ID to get into that and access that information. So it does more than act as your electronic signature. Same thing for parents. It allows you to sign the application, but if you're interested in that Parent Plus loan, you can do that all electronically with your FSA ID. And we didn't talk about the IRS data retrieval process, which I'm going to talk about, which makes this even easier if you're eligible to use it, but you need your FSA ID to do that. Now, I would tell students, parents, you want to do all of that, create that prior to completing the FAFSA. Because if the student has done that, they can actually start their application or sign into it using that FSA ID. It'll pull information from that FSA ID and the student has less questions that they have to answer. Okay? So if you can remember to, that's fine. If not, you can create your FSA ID at the same time you're doing your online FAFSA, but unfortunately it will only allow you to actually tap into the IRS data retrieval tool and to sign that application. It will not allow you to do anything else with that FSA ID until the Social Security Administration authenticates that FSA ID. So they go out there and they look, is that name, that date, that Social Security number all match? It takes them 1 to 3 days to do that. Okay? So if you can do it prior to, and they will send you an email saying it's all confirmed, you know, it makes it a lot easier to do that. Okay? Please be careful when you're doing that. Take your time. Because if you transpose numbers, you can mix that up, it's going to create a nightmare. And it's sometimes very difficult to get that change. Yes, ma'am?
When you're filling it out, can you stop and at one point and then go back to it, or you have to fill it out all at once?
Okay, excellent question. So the question was, I'm starting to FAFSA, maybe I don't have all my information, maybe the student isn't with me, and I wanted to ask them some questions. So yes, you can start the application. It will allow you to save it for 45 days. If you do not go back into that application within 45 days, everything is lost and you have to start all over again. So one of the options that the student will get when they start the application, it's going to ask them to create what's called a save key. It's a 4-digit code. It could be anything you want, 1, 2, 3, whatever you want. Okay? So that allows you to get back into that saved application. So you do have to create that. Okay? And it could be anything the student wants. Okay? So once you submit it, know that you won't need that. So we kind of talked about this already. So this is on the FAFSA where the student can list up to 10 schools. That's the max. Is anybody looking at more than 10 schools, or any of your children considering more than 10 schools? Do you? Okay. FAFSA only allows 10 schools max. If for some reason your child decides there are 11th or 12 schools they become interested in, what I would tell you to do is take the first top 10 schools that you're really interested in, complete the FAFSA, submit it. As I said, it takes less than 72 hours for the federal government to process that. The student does get confirmation from the federal government, an email sent to them saying, yes, we got your application, and yes, it's been processed. Okay, at that point, the student can go back in and make any changes or updates if they want. So that's the way they have to handle that. So the first 10 schools they list to get all that information. They can go back into the FAFSA, go to that student section, and list that 11th or 12th school. You're going to have to drop off 1 or 2 schools that are on there because you can only have a maximum of 10. Anytime you make an update or change to the FAFSA, please remember you have to submit it again, and you must sign it. It's the only way the federal government knows you made a change, okay, and can process it. It takes them no more than a day to do that, okay, because they already have a processed application, okay. And then the new schools you added, they will get that information. All the schools that were left on there will get a reprocessed application. The school that you took off or schools that you've taken off will get no further information. You can only get the results of the initial application. That's how it's working. It's the only way that you can manage that. Okay. So the IRS data retrieval tool, we talked a lot about. Okay. So what I'm going to tell you, when you get to this section, this is both in the student financial section if they file taxes, and it's in the parent financial section if you file taxes. If you did not file taxes, or the student did not file taxes, they're going to say that on the FAFSA, and they'll never see this. As I said, it's a smart applicant, so they know there's no tax out there, so I won't even present this to you. But if you file taxes and you're eligible to use this, because not everybody can use it, it'll tell you if you're eligible. It'll say to you, do you want to use this? You know? And it gives you some information that says, for your protection, we're going to pull in all the information that's required on the FAFSA from your tax return, automatically, okay, directly from the IRS, but you're not going to see it. There's going to be a tagline on it that says transferred from the IRS. You can't make any changes or updates to that because that student's record gets coded. It tells everyone who's getting that information, the state, the schools, that this information came directly from the IRS. It's all correct. Okay, and it's done. If you go in and make a change to any one of those items, change the information there, add a number or whatever, the student's record gets coded again, and it says, yes, they use the IRS data retrieval tool, but they made changes. So in that case, you're probably going to get selected for verification by the department. Basically, all that means is that you, the parent, and the student will have to provide specific documentation to the school. They'll tell you what that is. They need to then go in and verify all the information you provide on the FAFSA is correct. If not, they need to correct it, send it back, and have it reprocessed. If it is correct, then at that point they will be able to disperse funds to the student's account. But they can't disperse any funds to the student's account until that verification process is complete. I would encourage you, if you could use this, use it. And it makes it a lot easier for you and less questions. Okay? But that's an option up to you because it's not mandatory. So it's totally up to you. So what happens is, if you are allowed to use it, you'll click on a link that'll take you right out to the IRS database. You need your FSA ID to do this. So if you didn't create one prior to, you're going to have to create it here. Because the IRS takes some of the information from your FSA ID, finds your tax return, and repopulates the IRS form. The only other thing that you have to add and verify is your address. Be very careful how you do that. Okay? Because it has to match exactly what's on your tax return. If it does not, they will not find your tax return and they will tell you. Okay? So again, if you spell the word avenue out on your tax return, you can't abbreviate it here, or street. If you spell your street name wrong, you need to spell your street name wrong here. If your name was spelled wrong by your capital letter, you have to spell it the same way that it's on your tax return. Otherwise, they won't find it. Okay? So, assuming everything is good, they find your tax return. What you're going to see is the IRS will present to you all the items that are required for FAFSA. Okay? You have to approve this again. So they give you another option to say, yep, go ahead and do it, or no, I'm not interested in this. If you are not interested in using this, or you can't use it, you manually have to answer all those questions. And you have to put in those figures. And that's where you're going to need your W-2s and your tax returns. If you are interested, all you do is click the box that says transfer my information to FAFSA, let it go. When you go back at that point into the FAFSA, you're going to see every one of those items has been answered, and there's a tagline, transfer from the IRS. The IRS will no longer show you any figures because they want to protect your information. You know, last year there was some hacking going on, and there were people doing things that shouldn't have been done. And the department and the IRS shut down the whole system. Not even available for 18. So they reintroduced this for 18-19, but this is one of the security pieces that they put in. So if you don't like the fact that you cannot actually see what's being transferred over, and you don't want to use that process, you manually want to enter that information. Please keep in mind though, okay, because some people like this, because some parents did not like the fact that the student sold all their financial information. Because remember, when the student submits the FAFSA, they will get confirmation from the department. Thank you for submitting your FAFSA. It's been successfully processed, and then they send them a summary of everything that's in the FAFSA. So they get to see everything that they answered and all the information. So if you can use it, use it. A couple things that I just want to mention with this. So one of the things is it doesn't get transferred over. If you are a married couple, you file jointly, we do need to know what your total work income is, because there are protection allowances built into the formula. Your work income may be different than what your AGI is. Sometimes it's the same. In most instances, it is not. There's a lot of other information that gets put on that tax return and some adjustments that are allowed. So work income, it's going to ask you total work income for the parent, okay, and then it's going to ask you to break it out. What belongs to dad, what belongs to mom, okay? And you have to answer that in there. Okay? So you might need your W-2s, or you can look at your tax return, and it's only income information. So it'll be on line 7 of the 1040, line 12 is business income, and line 18, I think, is farm income. Okay, so you have to report that. Now, let's say it's a joint tax return. Okay, mom and dad are both on that, but maybe all that work income belongs to dad because mom's a stay-at-home, or vice versa. The only thing you would need to put in to that spot is 0 for that other person. You have to answer it. Every question that is presented must be answered. So that is one thing you need to answer, and that's a good thing because, as I said, in the formula, it looks at is there 1 or 2 working parents, and it does provide some additional protection for you. Okay? The other thing is rollovers. If any of you tapped into a retirement fund or IRA account, you have to report that on your tax return. If you're using the IRS data retrieval tool, that automatically gets pulled over. So you're going to get this question that says, okay, we see that you tapped into a retirement fund. Okay, did you roll any of that money over into another retirement fund? It happens a lot when people change jobs. They may leave the pension or retirement fund of their old company and join and put all that money in the new retirement fund of their new company. Okay, so it asks you that because if you did that and you don't tell them what you rolled over, they are going to look at that as a resource, and it's going to inflate that estimated family value. So if you rolled anything over, say yes, and then a box will pop up and says, tell us the amount that you rolled over so we can ignore that. Okay? So keep that in mind as well if that applies to you. Okay. So you complete the FAFSA and you submit it. This is the confirmation page. Okay. As I said, a lot of stuff on it. It's going to tell you what your EFC is. It's going to tell you what if the student's eligible for the federal Pell Grant and what their potential eligibility may be. It tells them what their eligibility is for the loan program. There are links to all the schools that they listed on there if they want to link into those schools. And then you're going to see other options. So one of the options you will see is start your state application. It's very small print. And there's a little orange arrow. And it's usually up at the top. But it's very easy to miss if you're not looking for it. And if you miss it, move on, you'll never see that again. Now, not necessarily a big problem for us, okay, because we get a copy of the FAFSA for every Pennsylvania resident. If that student was required to complete the state grant form, we'll know whether you did or not. If you didn't use this, then we will email a link out to you where you can complete that on our website or on the student portal. You know, and if not, we don't have a valid email, we'll send you a postcard that tells you where to go out and do that. But your state application will be incomplete until we get that state grant form. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is the easiest, quickest way to do it, if you can remember to do it. So that just talks about where you can do that on our website. Now, the other important thing with the state grant form, unfortunately, we don't have electronic signature like the federal government. Can't use your FSA ID, at least not for this year. For my juniors, though, we're supposedly going to have electronic signature for 1920, but it wasn't available for this year. So whether the student did this on the interface or they did it on our website, each student must print out the signature page. You physically need to sign it and date it, student, parent, and email it directly into FIA, and that completes the process. If you did the online interface and never printed out the signature page, we will reach out to you again, and we will tell you where you can print that out. Again, your application will stay incomplete for state grant until we receive it. Okay. So, to your question, lost my job after 2016. Oh, I was married but got divorced, married somebody else, maybe not. Have a new job. You know, whatever the case may be, there may be other issues or circumstances that happen to your family that impact your financial situation. As I said, fast as black and white, you can't tell them. You have to tell the schools. You have to let the schools know what's going on directly. Okay? And each school is going to handle that differently. Okay? In addition to that, you want to let the state know as well, because under our legislation, we do not allow the schools to override our system. The federal government does. The federal government allows the school to collect information from you, to go into their system, to override their formula, to take into consideration your special circumstance. Obviously, they can do that with their own institutional system as well. But the state does not allow that. So if you're not getting a state grant, you're not getting the maximum state grant, you know, and there are changes or circumstances, please contact and let us know, and we'll work with you. We have forms out on our website that are easy for you, so there's like reduction in income, there's a form out there that we'd ask you. I think it's easier for you to call us, because we'll monitor that, and then we'll tell you exactly what we need. Sometimes we can take that information over the phone, and we can put that in the student record, okay? But it's the only way that we can assist you and help you. And please keep in mind this can happen at any time. So if your child is already in school, finishes their first semester, you get a pink slip from your boss saying, you know what, we're shutting the company down, your job is gone. Okay, let the schools know. Okay, or if anything else changes, that school can go back in and look at that student's out, because we look at the student's eligibility for financial aid for a year, an academic year. So They can go back and reprocess that, and it may mean more aid for the whole year, or at least for that semester. But you gotta let them know. Now, I know it's difficult at this point, because you may have some students who have several schools they're looking at. You don't know which school they're going to go to. Okay? So what I would tell you to do in that scenario, if you want, most schools want you to file the FAFSA or whatever other forms they have first, because they have a living document that they can work with and adjust and tell you how that can impact based on your circumstances. But not all schools handle it that way. What I would tell you to do is look at maybe your top 3 schools, contact them, let them know you have special circumstances in your family, and ask them how do they handle it, and they'll let you know. Okay? Because normally a student is probably going to go to one of those top 3 schools, you know, if they provide them with the support, you know, and it makes sense, it all matches, and it fits what the student is looking for. Okay? That's the best advice I can give you in terms of addressing. So pretty much what happens on the back end here is student files the FAFSA, you submit it, it gets processed. As I said, the student will get confirmation that it was processed. ABC is calculated, never changes, regardless of the type of school. Information sent to the state. Information sent to all the schools the student listed on there. The state and the schools are going to put that student through their formula, and they're going to send an award notice out to the student to say, if you come to my school, here's what your eligibility for financial aid potentially could be. The state will say, oh, we think you're going to this school. If you go to this school, here's what your state grant eligibility is. Now, as I said on FAFSA, student can list up to 10 schools. And all those schools will get that information, and they can process all institutional federal aid. For the state, we can only process a student's state grant eligibility for 1 school. So what we do is, whatever that first school is that's listed on the FAFSA, we pull that over, and we pull it into the student's state grant form. That's one of the questions that we ask the students. So we say to the student, oh, we think that you're going to this school. If they're not, and if they want to put a different school, then they can change it, and we'll process their state grant eligibility, whatever school they tell us on that state grant. Okay? So for example, you're going to see that. If a student is looking at maybe some out-of-state schools, in some instances, if they're eligible for state grant, they cannot take any of their PA state grant monies in there. But they might be looking at a Pennsylvania school too. But I would tell that student, you want to list your Pennsylvania school in there. So if you decide to go to that school, and probably your most expensive Pennsylvania school, so that you can see what your maximum eligibility is for state grant if you attend that school. Now, again, we're going to send an award notice to the student. It doesn't happen until the first week of May. On that award notice, it tells the student what school we processed their grant on, and it gives them instructions that if they're not attending that school, here's how you can contact them. They can email them, they can call them, they can go on to the student account, student portal, it's called account access, and update that information. Okay? And we'll reprocess their grant based on whatever school they tell them they're going to, and make sure they get the funds. The cost of attendance that the school the student is attending does impact state grant eligibility. Okay? So I'm going to tell you that, yes, our maximum state grant may be $41.28, but if a student has gone to a community college where the cost of they're never going to be $41.28. It might be $3,000. That's the max. So we do look at the cost. There are 4 tiers that students fall into. Any questions on any of that? I know it's a lot of information throughout. We had a couple questions along the way. I'm going to just give you a little bit more information, maybe throw some numbers. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this, but I do want you to be aware of this. So for FAFSA, very income driven. There's income protection allowance for the student, and there's income and asset protection allowance for the parent. These are the 5 key areas that FAFSA focuses on. Parent income and assets, student income and assets, the size of the family managed. Because there's a standard allowance based on the size of your family that's built into the FAFSA. The number in college, managed. If you've got more than 1 child in it, FAFSA is going to look at that. Okay? And the age of the older parent matters also because they know you're closer to retirement, so more of your assets are actually protected in this process because we know that you're closer to retirement. Okay? So a couple of things I want to make mention very quickly is for the parent, you do not want to use your home that you live in. Never ever include that on FAFSA. It's not considered an asset at all. Okay? The value of your retirement fund, mistake I see a lot of families make, not included on FAFSA. Any insurance policies you have, no, don't include on there. I know the profile asks for all that, FAFSA does not, do not include it. Okay, so look at that helps and hints because it'll tell you. If you have a family business and you control more than 50%, you have hundreds or less full-time employees, no assets in the business get included. Same thing if it's a farm. Okay? We do allow for any taxes you're liable for. There's a standard living allowance based on the size of the family, the age of the older parent matters, because there are allowances built in for that as well. So there was a question.
Yeah, the EFC, that's processed like in the 72 hours, and then in the instance where your financial situation changes, does that get reprocessed?
Okay, so yes, so if there is a special circumstance that you communicated with the schools, the federal government allows them to go in and update that information. They can do that immediately, and they're going to, and they have to resubmit that process so they can see that, and it could change that EFC. It may or may not. You could wind up with additional aid, or you may not, because the way financial aid works is there are various cells that you fall into. So that EFC, you could be in the high end in the beginning, and then with your adjustment, you could be in the low end, but you're still in the same cell, and it might not equate any additional aid from the federal government. Could matter for the state, could matter for institutional aid, or it may not. It all depends. You could wind up in a whole different cell, which, yes, definitely would be.
They do reprocess.
Oh, yes, it has to be reprocessed, and they will do that. Yeah, and the schools can manage and handle that. Now, for the state, you have to contact us because even though we're getting the information from the feds, our formula is different. We allow a lot more. There are other adjustments that our caps are different than the federal government. You're going to find that Pell Grant is awarded to very low-income families. It's very income-driven more than anything. You could not be eligible for a Pell Grant, but still be eligible for a state grant and other aid from the school or other federal aid that the school may participate in. Okay. For the student, as I said, there's income protection but no asset protection. So for 18-19 student parent up to $6,570, none of that is looked at. Any amount that's over and above will be assessed at 50% added to that EFC. Same thing with their assets. Any asset that belongs to the student, they're the actual owner, you have to report that because there is no asset protection up to 20% of that off the top gets added to the EFC. The only difference there is if the student has a 529 plan in their name, that's always considered an asset of the parent, and if you are required to provide additional asset information, you would have to include that. It's a good thing because your assets over and above what is protected is only assessed at less than 6%. It's like 5.64%. Okay. It's very easy because when you're on the online form, you're going to get a question that says, do the parents' assets exceed this amount? If your assets don't exceed that amount, you don't have to provide any additional asset information. If they do, then you're going to get 3 additional asset questions. And again, you have to provide the net value of those assets as a Okay. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly here. I know it's a lot of information. So this is, I'll be right with you, this is the need calculation that every school uses. So the cost of attendance, that could be different. If I'm going to a community college, their cost of attendance is a lot less than a state school, state-related or a private. Okay? So that could change. The EFC never changes. Whether it's a community college or state school or private school, it's all the same. We subtract the cost of attendance, which is a sticker price, and every school develops each year tuition fees, living expense, books, supplies, transportation, miscellaneous expenses. Get thrown into that. We subtract the EFC, and what is left is the need. Okay? So if your costs go up, your need potentially could go up too. If your costs go down, your need may go down as well. Okay? So what schools are doing is they're looking at that need and they're trying to award that student other need-based grants and scholarships and other things in the state, trying to meet as much as that need as they possibly can. So they may be 100% or less. And that's a good question to ask the schools. There's a question. Yes.
P8529, it's by a grandparent.
Okay.
Do you have to claim this paid on that?
Very good question, and that information is also on the form and it addresses that. So here's how that works. If a grandparent has a 529 plan, and an aunt, an uncle, cousin, okay? And your child is the beneficiary of that. Because they are not the parent, that information does not get included on the FAFSA. Now, when that grandparent, however, taps into that 529 plan and gives those monies to the student, or pays their tuition, or their board, or anything else, that student is going to have to report that on a future FAFSA, okay? Now here's the deal with that. Remember that the income information you're using on FAFSA and the tax year you're using is 2 years old, okay? So I'm a senior, I'm going into college for 18, 19, grandmom's tapping into 529 plan, paying my tuition for 18, 19. None of that gets reported to FAFSA, okay? However, the following year, when I go to fill out that FAFSA, it's going to ask for 2017 income information. I don't report it on there either, okay? Because it's based on that time. Grandma didn't tap into that until 2018. So really, that student's junior year is when they would be reporting that. So a lot of grandparents are kind of slick to this, aunts and uncles too, and they're waiting to tap into that until maybe the junior, senior year, because that never gets reported. Congress is aware of it, who knows, because the whole thing that they mentioned grandparents on there was never on there, that's on there now. And they say this is what you need to do. But they don't know that they actually thought it all the way through or thought about what year we're collecting that information. It's based on the year that we're collecting. So again, that's one of those things you want to be careful when you're answering and looking at, when you're providing assets, you know. And then there are some untaxed income information too, like your retirement fund. I said none of that ever gets, the value of that doesn't get included, but the contribution that you're making each year to that retirement fund may need to be reported as untaxed income. But it all depends. It's not all of it. So that's like usually box 12 of your W-2. So just, and it'll tell you, you know, it's lettered. If you have in box 12, A, D, E, F, you need to report that amount here. D, D, no. Okay, B, no. Okay, so it'll tell you. Is there a question?
How big of a deal is child custody, support, custody support, and sweating an application one way or another?
Well, that's one of the questions that is asked on the FAFSA. So if you're paying child support or you're receiving it, it will ask you that. You need to provide that. And it is looked at in the formula, but each of those items are treated differently. You know, so, and there may be, you know, you might find that there are situations that your child may be getting some benefit, that once they turn 18 or something else, whatever that may be, they're no longer getting that benefit. So again, if that's a situation, you want to make sure you're letting the schools know the state so that they can take that into consideration. Okay. So we talked about the award letter, official notification, tell the student what aid you're eligible for, how to accept or reject, make sure they're looking at that, understanding what type of aid they're getting. Okay, I'm not going to harp on this too much. I do want to get into just some numbers with you very quickly so you know what we're talking about. So for right now, 17-18, which is the current academic year, we don't know what the Pell Grant's going to be for next year. Congress is not going to release that information. But the maximum amount that the student could get from the federal government is $59.20. That's it. It doesn't matter the cost of attendance at the school. So if they're going to a school that's $60,000 a year for a community college that's 10, $59.20 is the max they get. That's for the year. And it's always split in 2 or quarters, depending on how the school operates. Okay? These 2 other programs, campus-based programs, not all schools participate in. Congress does say if the school is offering supplemental educational opportunity grant, it usually goes to Pell-eligible students first, low-income students after that. Any money left over, then they'll award it to other students. Maximum they can get in a year is $4,000. Federal work study, it all depends on what is in that school's fund. Okay, so it's up to how much money you have in the account. Student can never get more than the cost of attendance, so it's going to be up to the school. And they're the major programs in the federal government. For the state, our maximum this year actually went down. So it was 43.18, but it's actually 41.23. We just got notification of that, and that's the maximum amount that a student who's attending a school in Pennsylvania full-time could potentially be eligible for. If they're going part-time, they'll get half of whatever the full-time award is. Again, this is those reciprocal states, so if the student's going out of state, and if not attending a school in one of these reciprocal states, they can't take any other state grant money with them. If they are going out of state and they're attending a school in one of these reciprocal states, maximum amount to be allowed to take is $600. And actually for this year, it was somewhere around $551 or $559. It wasn't even $600. Okay. Those states are all listed in the guide. They're also on our website, so I do want to make mention of that to you as well. And then there are all the loan programs. So just very quickly with this, $5,500 is the max that a freshman can get dependent student. Independent students for the first year are $9,500. I've talked about where a dependent student could maybe get the $9,500 is if the parent applied for the plus and was denied. Okay. Interest rate is determined by Congress each year, so currently it's 4.45%. There are some fees that come off the top of that. There are a lot of repayment options available on the back end. There's some loan forgiveness programs out there currently. Students do not have to make any payments while they're in school. They get a 6-month grace period after they graduate before they go into repayment. This is a student's loan. They're responsible for paying it back. If the student is eligible for any subsidized funds, schools need to determine that first. It means the federal government pays that interest while that student is in school, at least at the time, during any grace period for deferment. Okay?
That's a question.
Yes. And this is just a quick chart that shows you each year that they progress in their academic career. They can go on with my question.
I remember hearing that there's something called income-based repayment options when you're starting to have to pay it back after you're done.
Yes.
Are both subsidized and unsubsidized eligible for the income-based repayment program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically what happens is any portion of that loan that was subsidized, okay, the federal government pays the interest on that loan that's accruing while the school gets half time. During that grace period, if the student gets making payments, they can elect to do that. You know, and if they're eligible for any deferment period, so let's say they're unemployed, some of these loans, there's an unemployment deferment where they don't need to make any payments, their loan stays in good standing. You know, again, if any portion of that is subsidized, the federal government will pay the interest on that at that time. But the repayment options, and there are a lot of different ones, and there are many income-based repayment or income contingent, or there's another one out there. If you're looking at any of the loan forgiveness programs out there, you have to be in specific loan repayments. Most of them are income repayment plans or standard. Okay, if you're eligible for that, the student will get all that information when it comes time for them to actually go into repayment. Okay, but yes, they are eligible.
Question?
Yes.
So I'm going back a little bit.
That's okay.
But about, you said the part where you fill out the FAFSA form and you have a child in college. And I remember FAFSA last year, I know we did financial aid. Is it going to be a whole set of questions because I marked yes, I have one in college?
No, so normally the FAFSA, I mean, pretty much if you looked at the form, it looks pretty much the same. There are some tweaks to it, some of the questions are wording changed. I know in the student status, they're only used to do 13, they actually added to 14, and it really had to do with students who are in a homeless situation to address those students who are homeless, but they're 23 or 22 years old, and you know, the department defines a youth as anyone 21 years or younger. So the problem with the students who are 23, 22, homeless, they had to talk to the financial aid office at school, and they had to do an override, okay, to consider that student independent in that scenario. But the federal government has now allowed those students to indicate that they're homeless to whatever. The whole application gets processed to whatever. They still have to work with the financial aid, but in the past, they couldn't complete the application until they talked to the financial aid. So there are just some changes there. So it will always, so your application's good for 1 year. You have to reapply each year. A student who's returning will actually fill out a renewal FAFSA. It's less questions because it pulls information in. They can always update anything that needs to be changed. And then at that point, if you have another child that's entering college, one returning, a new one, you want to make sure when you say number in college is 2, because it's going to impact that ESC for both those students. Okay? All right, so this is the parent loan. Again, this is a loan for the parent. There is a credit check that is done. It's the interest rate currently is 7%, determined by Congress each year, just like the student. July 1st, they determine that. There are some pretty hefty fees that come off of that. You can borrow, as I said, up to the cost of attendance minus any other aid the student's getting. This is your loan. You're responsible for paying it back. There are a lot of repayment options available to you again on the back end. You can elect not to pay any of this loan back till your child graduates, or you can make payments once it's fully dispersed. It's totally up to you. Okay. And then the last thing is, there are alternative loans or private loans out there, not federally regulated. It's the conditions, the interest rate, the payment options, the amount that you can borrow, all of that is determined by the financial institution that you're applying to. A student can apply to this, they'll never get it without cosign. I'll tell you that right now. This may be a resource to look at, because sometimes you may, as a cosigner to that student, may get a lower interest rate, 3, 4, 5%. Some students who may get approved for this without a cosigner, you're going to see their interest rates are up 22, 24, 27%, pretty much. So you want to make sure you're looking at these, but it is a resource that's available to you. But again, terms and conditions are all determined by that financial institution regardless. Okay. And I'm going to again, please look for those private outside scholarships. Usually that's money in addition to what the student is receiving from the school. That's a good question to ask, because some schools will limit the amount of private outside money a student can get before they start adjusting some of their aid. You know? If they're adjusting, if you want a copy of this presentation, I'll be happy to send it to you. I already sent it to the school. So it'll be on the website, they put it out there. But if you want your own personal copy, actually I'm going to send you something that's more extensive, because actually this is my short version. I have master tips, consumer, strategies. I have resources in there, and I'm going to give you the whole shebang just for you. But yeah, believe it or not, this is, and I can continue and continue.
And I can hopefully answer some questions.
Yeah, I'm going to shut up.
I can answer a lot of questions. If I don't know, I then email them. So I've learned a lot, like I said, and you can ask me what are the best options I can, whatever it is you need. Like I said, I welcome the child and the student to come down and start at FAFSA ID. I put the steps right here, plus a picture of the FAFSA opening page. I've seen FAFSA 100 times, so I'm pretty familiar with it in terms of what questions there are. So I definitely can be a first line resource, and then when it gets more complicated, then I can.
The last thing I did want to mention, though, one of the other questions that we ask on the state grant board is if you are participating in a Pennsylvania 529 plan, okay, it is considered an asset. If you were required to list that on the FAFSA, so again, you only list that if, when you look at all your assets, it was over and above what's protected. If it's not, then you're not putting any other information, so we're not even looking at that 529 plan anyway. But if you included that, and it's a Pennsylvania 529 plan, you definitely want to let us know that on that state grant form. It's a question we ask. Yes, I participated in the 529 plan. Yes, I included that on the FAFSA. And here's how much I included it, because we do not consider that a resource in determining eligibility for state aid. It's the only way we're going to know that is if we can tell it. Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that if you're not participating in the Pennsylvania 529 plan, and you want to, and I know if your child's a senior, you're not going to save a lot of money, or even if they're a junior, they're in school. But if you're paying a lot of Pennsylvania state taxes, you can reduce your tax liability by participating in that plan. So for a single person, it's like $14,000 in state tax reduction you can get. For a married couple, it's a little over $28,000. And again, you can get into it, maybe use any savings to pay the junior, senior year. But if you can reduce your state taxes and use that as a resource, that may help you in meeting that state educational taxes. So I have a contact in the state Treasury Department. You can email me. I'll send you their information. They'll talk to you about it. Or you can go right out to pa.treasury.gov and contact them there and they'll give you all that information.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.